And, and the only reason why I ended up back home doing this work was because that didn't really quite happen the way that I wanted it to. And I was broke, and I ended up going back home to live with mommy and daddy. And it's just that simple. But it was amazing because I got to go back and see my neighborhood with completely fresh eyes. And I got there and realized that there was what was happening was that our city and state were planning on building this huge waste facility that was going to bring about 40% of the city's municipal waste to our community. And I found out that we already, as a community, handled about 40% of the city's municipal waste. Commercial waste. And I was like, that's a lot. And I realized that this was somehow connected to the asthma rate in our community, to the way that garbage was handled or not handled in our community. And the only thing that made that I understood out of this was that this was a poor community that folks felt could be discriminated against because it was poor and of color. And it was like, a brick fell on me and light bulbs flashed in my face. And it was just one of those things that I'm so unbelievably grateful that I got to see things that way. And so I worked really hard with lots of members of my community to fight against those really unjust and just inappropriate, solid waste management plans and work toward a more sustainable program for the entire city, which was ultimately passed about a year and a half ago, which is incredibly exciting. But the thing that really made me stay doing this work is this dog. Thank you. But she found her literally tied up, in front of a neighbor's house in the rain. She was just pathetic. She was like this big and all head and feet at the time I found her as a puppy. She grew really big. And she ended up taking me jogging one day. And it was around the same time we were fighting really hard against this waste facility. And around the same time as well that I kept getting these notices, from this group that was offering little tiny seed grants to do Bronx River restoration projects. And I was like, oh, that's very sweet of these people that they're offering this little bit of money to do something or other, but you can't get to the waterfront from my neighborhood. I knew we had one, but I knew that industry was all along it. So I was like, you can't use it, so whatever. And fortunately, this dog took me jogging into what I thought was a nasty illegal garbage dump, and it was. However, this nasty illegal garbage dump, and when you got an 80-pound dog in front of you, you can be a little bolder than you normally would be. So she walked me, or pulled me into this thing, and it turns out that this dump dead-ended at the Bronx River, and I had never seen it before. I was 30 years old and I'd never seen the water in my neighborhood. I was like, oh my God. And it was like this magical morning. I swear, it's like the sunlight was glinting on the water and it was gold. And I was like, as long as I didn't, remember like all the garbage that literally I had to walk through to get to the waterfront, I thought, this is magic, and this belongs to my community. So I ran home and actually wrote this proposal, got lots of people to work with me to do all sorts of cleanups and stuff, and turns out we were able to partner with the city and the local businesses and really bring folks together around the idea that we, in fact, did need a waterfront park. And we were able to transform that dump into this. And since it's this incarnation, it's become this really incredible, meeting point, just beautiful place where people know they have every right to be considered beautiful and fabulous and just be a healthy, community together. And I swear, people's ideas of themselves just kind of change. You watch the stress fall off people as they walk into this place, because it is one of the most remarkable parks in all of New York City, I have to say. And we actually even won awards for it, which is very cool. But I also loved it so much, I actually got married there a few years ago. And with Zena as my flower girl. But in addition to it being a very cool spot for a chick to get married, it also, what it did was help our community see that all the things that we were thought about, because it's like you would say, if you're from the East Coast and you said you're from the South Bronx, and even from here and you say you're from the South Bronx, lots of folks like to think, there was we saw you on the nightly news, you must be a pimp, a pusher, or a prostitute. I used to be so ashamed to tell people where I was from that I'd lie. And now I'm like, no, that's my hood and that's where I'm from and I love it. But it was one of those things that, we really had to help people think about, well, what else can we do in our community? We have every right to be proud of who we are and where we're from because we are good people. Some bad things happen. to our community, and sometimes to us, and sometimes because of us. But ultimately, what we wanted to be was a part of the transformation that was happening in our own neighborhood. And so one of the things we worked on was actually continuing the idea that we could create safe places for ourselves by creating greenways, which is just a really simple bike pedestrian path that's dedicated for folks for that kind of infrastructure. And so we actually raised about $20 million to make that happen, to start making that happen. It's coming this fall. And coming this spring. This is a street that leads down to the waterfront. And this is what it's going to look like as they start working on that process. And this is a little piece that's going to connect us to about another 400 acres of parkland as well. The thing, however, that I'm most proud of is this. We started one of the country's first green jobs training and placement systems called BEST. And it was a way to really help folks see themselves as having both a personal as well as a financial stake in the environment. And so training, giving folks the hard skills of things like wetland restoration, learning how to clean up contaminated lands, green roof installation, urban forestry management as well. And many of the folks we worked with were almost everybody that we worked with were folks who had been through years of generational poverty, and also folks who had been formerly incarcerated, the kind of people that are traditionally just completely written off by many, many folks out there, often including themselves. And one of the things that we worked with really hard on them was to make sure that they had the kind of soft skills, the life skills training, job readiness as well, that helped them see themselves as a leader in their own lives. And I'll never forget this one moment when, because I do presentations in my neighborhoods for like the local schools or whatever, just to let folks know what's out there. And I remember this one little girl, this school I was doing this project at, or this presentation at, this girl was just all attitude and pigtails, and she was sitting there with her arms crossed, and I was like, what did I do to this child? And I didn't know. But anyway, she came up to me later, and I realized that I'd mistaken her attitude, for just utter shock. She's just my mom was in one of those pictures you showed. And I was like, oh, that's great. And she told me who she was, and all she could say was, she's a lot happier now. And I was like, okay, thank you. I did good. And so did your mom. She really did. Because this is a woman who I know who just honestly, her first kid, at 16, no one thought she'd ever do anything, especially her. And here she was raising these beautiful, beautiful children and showing them that they too could succeed. It was really powerful. Simple, simple, simple. Another thing we wanted to do was show point blank that you do not have to, that this whole green thing, it's not just about, these tree-hugging hippies. It is also about making money. I mean, I got to tell you, when I first would call myself an environmentalist, people would be like, you ain't old, white, and you're not a man. And I was like, no, thank you very much. Glad you noticed. But it's true. And so, but the idea that green is also the other kind of green, making sure that you can make money off of this, i.e. an economy, is what we really wanted to show as well. So when I was at SSB, we started a green roof installation business. And green roofing is simply, it's a sustainable building technique. They've been using it in Europe for more than 50 years, where you literally plant a roof, for stormwater management, for energy installation, because it literally keeps your buildings cooler in the summer as well, so you use less energy. It also provides, your roofs last at least 8 times longer. But they also, and the reason why I'm showing you all these people working is because these are jobs, none of which that can be outsourced, which is a good thing, in our economy as well. So this is the roof that we planted, a real cheap kind of version, up on top of my personal roof in the Bronx. This is what it looks like now. And we also wanted to show that you can do things like urban agriculture, plant different types of roof there as well. And so this was a really easy way to show it on our headquarters too. And we even did a medicinal herb garden, and we showed that you can do urban agriculture there as well. And these were easily the sweetest strawberries you have ever tasted. And we'd go upstairs, on breaks and have them as well. And so for stormwater management techniques, because these things absorb between 75 to 90% of the rain that falls on them, which is the same kind of stormwater, the same kind of water that is often managed through your combined sewage system. That's the rate you guys pay, also treats perfectly clean water.